16 Interesting Psychology Facts Women Needs to Know About Men in Love. Have you ever wondered how you can tell if a man is in love? Thankfully, it's not a matter of if, because a love-struck man will inevitably give himself away, and it becomes 16 Interesting Psychology Facts Women Needs to Know About Men in Love. Comes even easier to detect if you're knowledgeable about psychology. So without further ado, here are 16 fascinating psychological facts about men in love. Love blinds him. Everyone is flawed. But a man in love is incredibly likely to tolerate or even ignore your flaws. He might even tell you that he loves what you have always thought were flaws. Maybe you've got freckles and have always hated them, but to him they're part of why you're so beautiful. Or maybe you've always had a hot temper, but as far as he's concerned, you're simply strong-willed. He becomes a much better man. It's true what they say, being in love can change a person. Love changes a person's brain chemistry that it becomes easier for a person in love to stop an addiction, whether it be from cigarettes, alcohol or sex. This is the reason why many alcoholics do not get caught until later in the relationship. Because it's so easy for them to quit and put their best foot forward in the beginning. As time goes on and their brain chemistry goes back to normal, that's when it gets really hard. But hey, that's when we can see the power of true love. He'll get less things done. If a man has an obsessive personality, he will be so caught up thinking about you that he won't get much done. He can't resist checking his phone to see if you've sent him a message. In case he manages to resist, he will be so distracted that he can't focus on his task at hand. It's entirely up to you to decide whether this is a good thing or not. He'll cling to you. A man in love, especially if he's insecure and has an anxious attachment style, will want to claim the object of their affections and make sure they'll stay together forever. This means that every opportunity he gets, he will want to hold your hand, touch you and stay close to you. He will need constant reassurance and fast replies. All he cares about is your love. Until the love chemicals wear off. He'd rather show than tell. While not a hard and fast rule, men tend to be intimidated at the idea of being openly romantic or emotional. Society expects men to be stoic, and being emotional can be uncomfortable for men because they are taught that it's a sign of weakness. Pay attention instead to the things he does for your sake, like walking your dog or surprising you with a good meal. Because it's there that he shows his affections. Being in love stresses him out. It's normal for men who are in love to be a nervous wreck. The reason for this is because being in love fills the brain with the stress hormone cortisol. As far as the body is concerned, there's no difference between being in love and being stressed because of this. One of the best things you can do to a man who is in love with you is to reassure him and make him comfortable. He'll hold on to every compliment he gets. As a rule of thumb, men are incredibly lonely and attention-starved. They will remember even the smallest genuine compliment they get for years. And if that compliment just so happens to have come from someone they love, they will hold it close to their hearts and never forget it. If you think his hair looks sexy, tell him he won't forget it, especially if the compliment is from someone he's head over heels in love with. Chocolate will make him fall deeper in love. Romance and chocolate go hand in hand, and for good reason. Chocolate contains a hormone that's associated with feelings of love and romance and is naturally produced by our bodies whenever we're in a romantic mood. While chocolate alone will not make a man fall in love, chocolate will help intensify any romantic feelings he may have towards you at that moment. You might want to have some chocolate on hand all the time. For this reason, he might already know if he wants to marry you. If a guy is over 30 and you've been seeing him for quite a while, chances are he already knows that he wants to marry you. According to a study, it takes around 6 months for a person to know if they're dating someone who's marriage material. If you're still together after 6 months, don't be surprised if he'll pop the question anytime. Especially if you do these tricks. He might suddenly become guarded. Another unfortunate side effect of society's ideas for how men should act and the lack of emotional guidance they receive because of that is that they will have absolutely no idea what to do when they feel strong emotions like love. Many men would suddenly go silent or aloof in response, hiding or running away from their feelings rather than facing it. It's probably because of his fear of rejection and abandonment. Sadly, there's little you can do except wait for him to get more comfortable being around you. He'll fall harder for someone who reminds him of his mum. It's a weird thing to think about, but guys are more likely to fall in love with people who subconsciously remind them of their parents. I know, guys are weird. According to John Gottman, we can become psychologically conditioned to being attracted to a distinct parental personality type with the accompanying need for love. By the time we're 18 months old, we get comfort from what's familiar. Even if we promised ourselves we'll never become like our parents, he'll be less worried about others' opinions. We're all concerned about how other people think of us. But the beautiful thing about love is that the more deeply in love a guy is, the less he is bothered by what others think. Everyone else becomes noise, and the only two people that matter in this world are you and him. But of course, this is all within reason. While you can get a guy to shout out "I love you" at the top of his lungs from the rooftops, it's less likely that you can convince him to go to work in his underwear. A breakup will devastate him. Some people have this idea that men pick themselves up after a breakup quickly and then jump into a new relationship without a second thought. While this may be true for players who don't take relationships seriously, a breakup would absolutely crush the heart of a man who's deeply in love. His ideals will slowly match yours. People say that lovers often end up looking like each other if they last long enough. And there's truth in this. A man who's in love with you will slowly pick up on your habits, understand the way you think, and even pick up your sense of fashion. While this is adorable, it's better if you encourage him to have his own opinions and keep his own personality. After all, you fell in love with that person. He's empathic. A man who's in love with you can tell what you're feeling, and he will do his best to make sure you're happy. If he realizes that he alone can't keep you happy, he will introduce you to people and places that will. Instead of forcing you to be happy with him alone, an example would be that he would introduce you to his friends and encourage you to hang out with them. A man in love is in tune with your feelings, and he feels miserable if you're blue. He'll always try to find time. While it's not quite true that you're never too busy to spend time with the people you love, responsibilities exist. After all, It is true that a man who's in love will try to find time in his life, no matter how busy or laid back, to spend time with you and for you. If a man is in love with you, he can't stop thinking of you, and you can be sure you're at the top of his priority list.